Airlines plan to resume popular flights in July, and many people have already started booking trips to Europe this summer. But when can you go on holiday abroad? Well, you can book your flights for an overseas summer getaway now if you like, but travel still isn't advised, and it's a gamble, especially if you don't want to quarantine when you arrive back in the UK. What is the official travel advice? At the moment, the Foreign Office still warns against all non-essential travel abroad, and travellers arriving in the UK now face 14 days of isolation under mandatory quarantine rules. How long will travel quarantine last? The mandatory isolation rules will be reviewed at the end of June, but we don't yet have a date for when they might be lifted. What are the risks if you travel? The foreign advice is advisory, so the decision to travel is down to you. But if you do ignore the advice and you book a holiday and the advice is still the same when you travel, then your insurance will most likely not be valid. What happens if you get ill? Okay, there are a lot of ifs here. If you book the holiday before the Foreign Office advice and you've got insurance, then you should be covered for cancelling. If you book the holiday after the advice not to travel, then you won't be covered if anything goes wrong. And if there is no advisory and you get coronavirus and can't travel, well, this is something you will need to check with your insurer before booking, because in March, a series of insurers stopped selling policies that covered coronavirus cancellation. What countries can you visit from the UK? Borders have now opened up across Europe for Europeans. But since the UK has left the EU, not all countries will welcome Brits without quarantine. For example, if you head to France, you'll need to self-isolate for 14 days. But there are popular holiday destinations where you are permitted to travel without quarantine, like Italy, Portugal, and soon Spain and Greece. How will coronavirus change holidays? Expect social distancing and wearing face masks when flying. In airports, you can expect health screenings to become more common. Like if you fly to Portugal, travellers will have their temperatures checked and, if unwell, will be referred to health authorities. What about a staycation instead? If you decide to abandon holidays abroad this year and stay in the UK, it is the government's hopes that the tourism sector in England can begin to reopen from the 4th of July. But if you want to travel to a different devolved nation, well, you might have to wait a little bit longer. We don't have a date for Wales yet, but the state local rule where people are advised not to travel more than 5 miles is still in place. In Scotland, the tourism sector could begin to reopen from the 15th of July. And in Northern Ireland, hotels were scheduled to open on the 20th of July, but it's now been brought forward to the 3rd.